Sometimes I'm gaining, then again I'm losing. Sometimes I'm rising, yes, sir. Then again I'm falling. Sometimes I'm gaining, then again I'm losing. Sometimes I'm rising, yes, sir. Then again I'm falling. Let Jesus work it out. Please, your Father, would work it out. Oh, let God work it out. Please, your Father, would work it out. Oh, let God work it out. Please, your Father, would work it out. Oh, let God work it out. Oh, work it out. You work it out for Mother Teresa. Sometimes I'm gaining, then again I'm losing. Sometimes I'm rising, yes, sir. Then again I'm falling. Sometimes I'm gaining, then again I'm losing. Sometimes I'm rising, yes, sir. Then again I'm falling. Let Jesus work it out. Please, your Father, would work it out. Oh, let God work it out. Please, your Father, would work it out. Oh, let God work it out. Please, your Father, would work it out. Oh, let God work it out. Oh, work it out. You work it out for Mother Teresa.
All right. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is David Patrick Harry with Church of the Eternal Logos, and we have a sponsored stream today. A major shout out goes out to Robert John Hammond. We did a sponsored stream actually earlier, a few months back of his regarding his book, American Orthodox. And some of you guys may remember we kind of dove into the life and martyrdom of St. Peter the Aleut, and talked about Fort Ross and various different things. Well, John has come out with 2 more books, and today's stream is the continuation of his book, American Orthodoxy, called Light Journey, Encountering Saints, Miracles, and Sacred Places. And so we're going to be diving into this book today. And I got a bunch of videos, so it's not going to be me reading, although I am going to move through. You can see all my tabs here. We're going to move through this book and I'm going to read excerpts. But what this book's about is really trying to provide a narrative and a voice towards pilgrimage and an Orthodox pilgrimage in America. And so he talks about various saints, and we've kind of covered some of these saints. We did a whole stream on the important Orthodox saints of America or North America. And so I don't want to focus too much on that, but he gets into St. John Maximovich, St. John of San Francisco, St. Innocent of Alaska, he mentions St. Herman, St. Raphael of Brooklyn. And so we may make, I have a few things that I'm going to show you guys, but some of it, one of the things we're going to dive into today that I haven't really ever done or discussed on stream is the Iveron icon. Some of you guys may be familiar with the miracle working myrrh streaming icon out of Hawaii. Well, this plays a central role in John's narrative in Light Journey. And I have never discussed this in stream. And so I found a fantastic video kind of going over it. And I want to read sections from this book discussing it because that's a very, very fascinating story. You know, for some of you guys who don't know, the Iveron icon actually comes from the iconoclastic period in Byzantium when icons were considered blasphemy, idolatry. And so this particular icon, a soldier comes, and John gives a great narrative about it. So I'm paraphrasing here. I don't have it in the concise and beautiful narrative that he places it in. But soldiers come in, and they're scouring villages for icons. And this one icon, they enter into this widow's home, and they one of the soldiers sees this icon, and he pierces it with a spear, and blood starts to drip from the icon. And the soldier is absolutely stunned to see red blood dripping from the icon of the Theotokos that he had just stabbed. And the Iveron icon, if you don't know, that's the thumbnail on that's the icon on the thumbnail for today's stream. And I got a video we're going to be looking at. I got more to show you guys. But the icon started bleeding. The widow and her son, in fear that they're going to destroy the icon, take it away and damage it, they end up wrapping it very carefully and sending it out into the sea. And the story goes is that the Iveron Monastery on Mount Athos, the Georgian monastery, these monks begin to see this pillar of light. And this pillar of light is actually the icon floating in the ocean. And I don't know what it is. They see it for multiple days. Eventually, one of the monks has a vision, goes out there and goes and retrieves the icon, brings the icon to the Georgian monastery there on Mount Athos. And they could tell there's something holy about this icon. There's something very special about it. They place it in the monastery, and upon the next morning, it's missing. It's gone. They can't find it. Well, it's on the front gate of the monastery. And so this happens multiple times, this weird thing where they go and they place this icon in a very special place inside the monastery so it won't be bothered. And yet miraculously, it ends up in the front, on the front gate every single time. And they took this as a sign that the Theotokos doesn't want to be relegated or cloistered away in a monastery, that she is the protector of Mount Athos. She is the protector of the monastics. Well, long story short, there is a replica of this icon made, and this replica is the replica that is now streaming myrrh and was the famous Iveron icon of Hawaii that travels around really the whole world. And I'm going to read the section, so I don't want to give it away, but I'm going to read the whole section in this book where he talks about at that time a deacon who's now a priest who discovers the icon that he has beginning to stream myrrh, and him and his wife just absolutely stunned. It's just them in their home, and they're looking at this thing, and it's covered in myrrh. So I'm going to read that whole narrative, but we got all types of stuff. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that. Let's see all the tabs I got pulled up. We're going to be talking about A little bit about Fort Ross. Again, we kind of covered a lot about Fort Ross in the last stream, so we're not going to be focusing too much on Fort Ross of making that the focus of the stream. But I do have some stuff I want to discuss there. I do have a video I may play on Saint Sebastian of Jackson. We didn't cover him as much in the stream on the saints of North America, but Saint Sebastian is the saint that brings Serbian Orthodoxy to the United States and consecrates the first Serbian church in Jackson, California, the St. Sava Cathedral. So I have a little bit of a video. It's about only 5 minutes, 30 seconds. We may watch that. I got a video that's a tour of St. Anthony's Monastery. So it's actually somebody's like personal video walking through the monastery grounds, because if we're talking about pilgrimage, one of the things that John makes a central point of in this book is all the monasteries and the monastic life that's Elder Ephraim brings from Mount Athos to the United States. But somebody like Father Cyril from Rose, who sort of revalidates monastic life in the contemporary period. And it's not a dead tradition or a relic of the past, but instead is a living tradition. The living tradition, the living faith of the church is still present in the monastics and the ascetic life. And Father Cyril from Rhodes is kind of one that really popularized that in the American context. Obviously, America itself is a Protestant nation, so it doesn't have that same historical rooting in monasticism and stuff like that. It also covers, it gets into Father Moses. So Father Moses Berry is an African-American priest. Some of you guys may be aware. John is an African-American man who's a convert to Orthodoxy. And actually, the second chapter of this book is John being very open about how he came to Orthodoxy. And it's actually something that a lot of us can probably relate to. Maybe not for me the same extent or the same extreme that John himself faced, but it led to drug addiction, it led to wandering, hedonism, meaninglessness. Eventually, it sort of culminates for John, and we'll discuss this when we go through the book, with going to a sort of mega church concert in Anaheim, California. And upon leaving that, being pulled over with a large quantity of marijuana and a loaded gun in his car, which found him in prison. And it's that sort of dark night of the soul that he experienced in prison that essentially led him wanting for something more, and eventually brings him to experience an Orthodox liturgy and Orthodox service, which, like Father Cyril from Rose, was like the first time that he felt like he was home, that there was a mystery there, that something was happening. Maybe he didn't understand the liturgy or all the words, but it was something deeply spiritual and deeply real. And so John kind of opens up about that. And I want to promote John's project too, because he's actually the filmmaker for a coming documentary some of you guys may be familiar with. I actually promoted in the last time we were talking about his book, but it's called American Orthodox. And it's kind of a continuation, if you will, of Sacred Alaska. If you guys saw the documentary Sacred Alaska. So I'm going to introduce all that stuff to you. I got a quick little monologue, and then we're just going to get straight into the content today. So again, a major thank you to Robert John Hammond. Shout out to you, brother. I'm going to post all the links to his book and his website, and I'll show you the trailer for his upcoming documentary, which apparently I was going back and forth with him on email, should be out here pretty soon. Sounds like final production is about to wrap up. So we should have, just like Sacred Alaska, another fantastic Orthodox documentary focusing on Orthodoxy in the American context. So I'm going to show you guys all that stuff in just a minute. I just want to say a few things to kind of set the setting for today's stream. Alan throws in a generous $40. Thank you so much, Alan. He says, Christ is risen. Truly, he is risen. Thank you so much, brother. Really appreciate that support. God bless you. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. Smash that like. While we were taking a break real quick, let me just check. Justin Henley throws in $10 over on the Dono chat. No comment. Thank you so much, Justin. Really appreciate that, my brother. God bless you. So let me do my quick little monologue here, and then we'll share links. And then I want to kind of go through all the stuff to introduce you to John's work and promote his stuff, and then go through the book and all the videos. So it's not going to be all a bunch of reading today. You know, that's one of the difficult challenges of presenting books, is nobody likes to watch streams where somebody's just reading to you. But at the same point, there's things in here that I want to read to you. So I got videos as extra material. But the first thing I want to say is about Orthodoxy in America, and provide a type of context for really both these books, but what's happening in culture, what's happening in general. The last video I'm going to show you guys is actually a video of Father Peter Heers talking about the future of Orthodoxy in America, because we're witnessing a massive rise. Father Josiah Trenum put out a video recently discussing this and how many catechumens he has, how many people he's bringing in during Pascha. But he was reluctant to support the sort of general mimetic narrative that we're maybe around 6 million Orthodox Christians in the United States, that it's jumped from maybe 600,000, 700,000 to 6 million. That was a number that's been floated around. He's a little bit skeptical of that. But what this book is talking about is that from St. Herman of Alaska, bringing the faith to the Native Americans there, to Fort Ross. If you guys remember, Fort Ross is a fort established by the Russians in the middle of the 1800s. As an outpost right on the northern banks of California. And it was essentially to acquire sea otter pelts, which were very valuable at the time. But it's also now a national or a state historic site for California, a state park in which you can go to. And it still has a chapel, the chapel that the Russians built when they came. So from Fort Ross to St. Anthony's Monasteries, we have soon to be Saint Elder Ephraim coming from Mount Athos to spread monasticism to America. And of course, then he talks about Father Josiah Trenum, the popularity of patristic nectar, how social media has been a great catalyst for the spread of the faith. And he mentions, especially in the section talking about African-American identity and orthodoxy in America, Father Turbo Qualls. Father Turbo, you guys know I love Father Turbo. Good friends with Father Turbo. In fact, I need to reach out to him. We need to do another stream here soon. But the dude is very busy. Whenever I go on his calendar, Father Turbo's booked for basically, at least the last time, which was 6 months ago. Last time I looked at his schedule, he was booked every day for 2.5 months. So he's a difficult man to get his time, but I'll have to text him and reach out to him privately. Maybe we can set something up. But to Father Turbo, and when we're talking about Orthodoxy in America, it actually has a rich history. And there's such richness in actually being an Orthodox pilgrim in America. There's so many monasteries you can go to, so many churches, relics, different communities around the nation that we see are blossoming and growing. And then monasteries, as I said, monasteries in America, monasteries are so foreign to the American frontima, if you will, right? I mean, America is an Enlightenment Protestant project. And America is built on the modernist narrative of unending progress. And this is going to come back. I want to rehash this point in regards to the religious context of Orthodoxy in America, and really a larger perspective of what's happening regarding the interest of young people into the church. But America doesn't have a religious monastic tradition. I would argue America doesn't even have a religious identity. I mean, historically, it's a Protestant Christianity, but then you can ask, well, what form of Christianity? Is it Anglicanism? Is it Episcopalianism from Britain? What is it? Is it Puritanism? And there's no real good answer. And I want to come back to why Orthodoxy is going to increasingly become more and more appealing in this American context, where as a nation itself, it has really no explicit religious identity. It's a general religious identity. The religious identity of America is generally Protestant Christian. It's generally Christian. Okay, now we accept Catholics. Once the wave of immigrants started coming from Europe, we started getting Catholicism. And so the religious context of Orthodoxy in America is one in which it is competing, and really, as I talked about before, with this framework that I think is so useful. Nobody's speaking about this online. The pre-modern and the postmodern versus the modern. That America is a modernist project. And of course, now we see the postmodern relativism and subjectivism be rampant across universities and social media, just people generally speaking. There is an underlying relativism of American culture, and it's tied certainly with multiculturalism, consumerism, capitalism. I mean, it is like a Foucault-ish America where the only thing that exists is power, right? That truth, in a sense, is relative. The media, I mean, there is no institutional truth. There is no institutional basis to discover truth in America. Our institutions are totally corrupt. There's nothing there to protect. And so America is built on modernity. What is modernity? It's about secularism. So if you wanted to, I was thinking about this, if we really wanted to say, what is the definitional religious stance of America? It's secularism, meaning all religions over here, doesn't matter what they are, they're all equal. They all have a utility for people's spiritual interests, right? It gives you transcendent meaning and forms communities, but they're all equal. There's no truth claim. There's no real strong stance on a religious orientation. And then you have secularism, which all religions then have to be under the umbrella of secularism. Secularism is a central feature of modernity. Rationalism is a central feature of modernity, the idea of doing away with the mystical. I talked about this in the last stream with Max Weber, the famous German sociologist who talked about the disenchantment of the world, that science and rationalism and really the deification of rationalism is something that he was concerned about, because what it was doing was demystifying the world itself. And it wasn't that, or at least my argument is, maybe not Weber's, my argument is, even if rationalism is trying to define the whole world, it can't, because reality itself is ultimately a mystery. And so through this prism of the deification of rationalism, you essentially live in a bubble that sort of protects you from the mystery, from the transcendent of the world. And that's kind of the state and the status of America to some extent. So rationalism, secularism, technology, science. And of course, I talked about how America, from its beginning, in the 1600s, when I forget the pastor's name, it was a minister, and he began calling for people in Britain. So he was in Britain to go and colonize, inhabit the new colonies in America. And what was the point? What was the selling? The selling was that America is the second Eden. America is going to be the new Jerusalem. America is going to be the end point of history. The American is a man emancipated from history. And in that sense, he is Adam. Adam is a man that lived before the fall into history, right? And it was believed by so many people, especially during the First Great Awakening and echoed throughout the Second Great Awakening, the American is the universal man. He is the man that eventually, once we reach the utopia that America was going to create, he was going to be the one that's sort of outside the confines of the historical narrative, that it's the end point. And this is all built on this understanding that history itself is continually a linear progress. America is built on this modernist narrative. This is what postmodernism, and what I was highlighting in regards to my dissertation, and I think I brought this up regarding the woke right conversation with Peterson and Lindsay, is that pre-modernism and postmodernism are both rejecting the narrative that modernity is going to end us into a utopia. Because look at what's happening. There's a famous book by Bellamy called Looking Backwards. It was the most important book in the 1800s in America. Really, second, I guess you could say second to was it Uncle Tom's Cabin? But it started political movements. And in the book Looking Backward, Bellamy, he prophesizes essentially like supermarkets like Costco, huge storehouses where you can buy goods in bulk. And this was the promise of America. He thought technology was going to lead us to a socialist utopia in which people didn't have to work anymore. They were emancipated again from the confines of labor. Now, if you're Christian, labor and birth pangs are the consequences of the fall, and we don't get out of those before Christ comes, right? So this idea of moving into a utopia where nobody has to work is actually antithetical to the way in which God established salvation for men and women. Men have to work. That's part of the gig. Even if you're a monk, women are supposed, God willing, if you have the ability, to give birth. And that birth is going to be painful, but that's part of the salvation. That's part of the journey. And for Bellamy, he believed that we were going to have credit cards. This is, again, he wrote this in like 1880s, 1870s. Somebody can look it up and fact check me. It's in the 1800s. The book Looking Backwards. And he talks about credit cards, talks about storehouses, talks about television, multiplicity of channels on television through cables. So all this stuff in this book was a catalyst to this utopian vision of what America was going to be. And then around in the 1890s, he writes a second book following up on it. And Bellamy was one of these Owenite socialists. If you guys are familiar with like Owenite socialism from Europe, and he lamented in the second book what was happening in America. And what he said, and I have a block quote in my dissertation, was that he was so frustrated that Americans at the end of the 19th century, the end of the 1800s, moving into the 20th century, that Americans did not care whether the technology actually made life better. Now, 20 years before, he believed that absolutely technology was going to produce utopia. 20 years later, he sees how people just care about the latest technology. They really don't care if it causes, if it's good for people. And in fact, what he was seeing was the inverse, that, and this is before the 20th century, that while technology was expanding and knowledge was expanding, people weren't necessarily becoming happier. And this baffled him. And he thought that the fact that Americans are more concerned with technological advancement than whether the welfare of individuals was something that he really wasn't conscious of when he wrote the book initially, but now then seeing it, and look at us now. Look at 120 years after that. And people are standing outside of the Apple store. They're obsessed with technology, right? This is part of the American ethos, whether we're conscious of it or not, is that being an American was tied with this narrative that we were going to be able to have everything, have all the goods, and live in this technological industrial utopia, which is the end point of history itself. It is the second Garden of Eden. It is the New Jerusalem. And so what's ironic is that in the 20th century, this sacred canopy, this abstract general Protestant Enlightenment project of America has been torn. I mean, and you can point maybe to different areas in the 20th century that you could see this, what's called the sacred canopy, the fabric that unifies a society. It comes from a theory of a sociologist named Peter Berger. He was actually a Protestant American scholar. It's a very important theory, actually. It's used by a lot of people. And the sacred canopy states that every culture, every group of people, the only way to be unified is that they exist under a sacred canopy. And the sacred canopy validates or legitimates historical figures, historical values, our perception of history, who we are as a people, where we're going, what we've done. And that sacred canopy, and he was talking in the mid 20th century when he developed this theory, he was arguing that the sacred canopy of America has kind of been torn. There is no one canopy, there is no one banner that unifies everybody in this country anymore. And the reason why that is, and the reason why the sacred canopy is torn, is because of modernism's multiculturalism, globalism, democratic. I mean, we could say that we're a democratic republic. I mean, whatever the democratic form we have, and even it's kind of a faux democracy, right? I mean, everybody saw what happened in 2020, and yes, Trump won in 2024, but it's not like all those issues have been solved. We're like one of 2 or 3 countries in the world that do these electronic ballots. We don't even do paper ballots. So the system we live in, the fabric we live in, the failure to understand that we have to have a shared value, a shared religion, a shared identity, a shared historical narrative so that we can maintain as one unity into the future. This is why the MAGA movement is so polarizing. You know, make America great again. As I've already argued, I'm not going to get into it. The alliance between Zionism, MAGA, and the technocrats, this is the continuation of modernity. But MAGA, why it's so irritating to certain people, is the idea of making America great again is antithetical to their sacred canopy, which their sacred canopy, their sacred values and symbols and narratives and figures, is the opposite. It's about the destroying of America, whatever that is. Again, we're not making an argument on the Enlightenment Project per se. We're talking about the state of religion and the state of cultural affairs in the United States currently. And so technology, industry, tied into the Protestant work ethic. If America was promised to be the second Eden, and this is another theory coming from Max Weber, the German sociologist, is that Protestantism, because it doesn't have sacraments, because it doesn't have a confession, therefore people are having to work out their salvation in different ways because of the unsuredness, even though they claim, sola fide, once saved, always saved, faith alone. Well, he argued, and he was seeing this during the height of the Industrial Revolution in Germany and Britain, that these Protestants feel that their work ethic is the way in which they sort of ascetically work out their salvation. So by working hard and diligently, it demonstrates to themselves, to each other, their community, and to God that they're actually a good Christian, because look how hard they're working and doing the right thing. And there's nothing wrong with working hard. And this is part of why America has such a different work ethic and disposition towards work than Europe. In Europe, people get like a month to 2 month vacation. In America, you get 2 weeks for a whole year. Where does all this come from? Well, it's built into the presuppositions of the country we live in and the intellectual project that it originated from. And so the state of affairs of which then is post-modernity, really, you could say the end of the 20th century and into the 21st century, generally defined as post-modernity. What is happening is the existential search for meaning, truth, and identity. And that's what everybody's doing. And the postmodernists respond to that by saying, well, everybody has their own truth. Everybody has their own meaning. Go create your identity. Go cut off your testicles, get breast implants, do whatever you want to do. Now you've constructed your relativistic subjective truth. Orthodoxy is coming in to fill this void. And this is where the pre-modern and the postmodern, because pre-modern Orthodoxy is criticizing the modernist Enlightenment project, really the presuppositions that it's founded on. Now, the response is not to create a new project, the philosophical project of subjective and relativism, postmodernism. It's saying, let's return back to a worldview, a paradigm of thought before modernity, before this idea that technology and science was going to rescue us and that rationality was our union with God, and that we were going to solve all problems and man was going to create utopia. This is the general paradigm that we're all still stuck in. This is the post-World War II consensus that is actually being undermined right now. And and maybe I'll do a stream on the post-World War consensus. I know, I think Paggio just put out a video recently discussing it, but I only bring it up because this is what we're seeing. This is the fracture that we're seeing in the world right now. It's the Western world per se. And this is why Orthodoxy, traditional Catholicism, paganism, Stoicism, why are so many in the right wing drawn to these things? Well, they're pre-modern. These are worldviews. These are paradigms. These are value systems, semiotic structures that allow you to perceive the world that aren't tainted with the pre-modernism or the modernity, the modernism that we're all entrapped in right now. And so Orthodoxy gives the contemporary person in 2025, let's just grab a general person. Let's say they're a sophomore in college, 20 years old, white male. It could be anything. But they feel like they don't have an identity. What does it mean to be American? Well, it doesn't really mean much anymore. Anybody can be American. We live in a world, or at least a nation, that believes in this magic dirt theory. And so if you were born in Zimbabwe and you got your green card and you're here, you're American. But is that what national identity is? Is that what it means to be a citizen of a nation? Not really. And so young people have this angst of, who am I? What am I? What is my identity? Maybe they grew up in a non-religious family. They live in a country where it doesn't really have any sort of national identity. I mean, there is, but you get my point of where it's moving. It's been destroyed. And so this search for identity, the search for meaning, the search for purpose, the search for truth usually begins with conspiracies and then ends in the rabbit hole of Jesus Christ or religion per se, concepts about God, maybe theological debates. And then from there, Orthodoxy is the only one that is truly pre-modern. See, when we're talking about Christianity, we're talking about this pre-modern, post-modern modernism. You can probably group trad Catholicism, but it's still, Vatican I is still tainted with modernism. The Catholic Church is clearly now a modernist enterprise. So if you want to get back to a historical identity, a historical faith, a historical tradition, Orthodoxy is the only Christian choice you have. Now, you could go to Coptics. I guess you could say Orthodoxy and Orientals are the only choice you have. Those are the only ones that aren't fully tainted by modernism. And so Orthodoxy provides a noetic understanding of knowledge. It's not just rationalism. It's not about, being able to rationally apprehend everything in the world. It's that knowledge itself is actually noetic. It's tied with your morality. It's tied with your synergistic relationship with God. And even if you were the most rational, intelligent person in the world, how blinded are you spiritually? And so knowledge within Orthodoxy, the pre-modern worldview, doesn't divide knowledge into these categories. Knowledge is both spiritual, rational, empirical, mystical, metaphysical. It's all one bag. It's modernity that's divided these up and then pushed away the ones that they can't empirically verify. Orthodoxy provides a therapeutic understanding to morality. You're not moral, you're not ethical because you're abiding by rules. You're moral and you're ethical because in that imitation of Christ, it's therapeutic. It actually heals your soul. You actually become something more. God's energies can actually flow through you as a conduit into the world. That is the ultimate meaning. That is the purpose. This is full synergy. And so we don't understand morality as some type of social construction that everybody has agreed upon based on this sort of game theory or social contract. No, it's objective and it's therapeutic. It actually is a healing process. Participating in objective morality and imitating Christ is a healing process of which all of us need to go through, especially because of modernity. And then the next one is it's experiential. So where the postmoderns are trying to undercut modernism because modernism is so focused on rationalism, secularism, science, technology, progress, and utopia. These things are abstract. Where's the personal experience in all this? Where's the validation of me doing things and seeing things and experiencing things? Well, it's not really there. Modernity says that you and I are cogs in a machine. We're widgets. We can be interchanged. The interior life of the individual makes no difference. It doesn't matter. Orthodoxy says no. Our hierarchy of epistemology begins with revelation, obviously, but then personal faith and personal experience is valorized. It's elevated. It's important because that's where you meet God. You can meet God through reason. You can meet God through abstract thoughts, but not in the direct way you can through subjective personal experience. So postmodernism is trying to validate subjective experience, but what they do is the last part of our rung of epistemology is the traditional metaphysics, the metaphysics that built Christendom, the metaphysics that built even Western Christianity that has now been discarded after Kant. So the entire metaphysical basis for what built the opportunity for modernity has been wiped away. Orthodoxy solves the issues postmodernism is trying to correct, and then is a pre-modern worldview that solves the problems that modernity created. And this is why Orthodoxy is so appealing. This is why the search for truth, meaning, and identity is totally found in Orthodoxy. That no matter what you are, and this is true with the African Americans, this is true with Native Americans, right? This book highlights that whether you're a white American, maybe you're a disenfranchised Protestant, maybe you're an African American, grew up Baptist or whatever it may be, maybe you're Native American, you grew up in a sort of shamanistic nature paganism, Orthodoxy already has bridges for all of us to cross into it. There's already St. Peter the Aleut, the Native American that converted to Orthodoxy and died a martyr. There's already multiple clergy and priests and saints like St. Moses the Black that have already bridged the racial distinction into Orthodoxy, if you will, and which is, again, not even historically accurate. I mean, it's very American, right? This idea that African American, like we all can't participate in the same, that's not how it was historically. So Orthodoxy allows for African Americans, Native Americans, white Americans, even Hispanic Americans are mentioned in here, are able to find a historic identity, an identity that pre-exists the project of America, which is going to deteriorate. America is going to end before the Orthodox Church does. And so placing your identity in the church actually gives you a sort of bulwark against the modern project, which destroys your individual identity. It destroys your ancestry, right? This is why modernity has globalism, because nationalism is regressive, in their opinion. Nationalism is too close to people with an identity. Nationalism is too close to probably monarchy in these sort of pre-modern worldviews where language groups, people groups, and religious groups are distinct and the boundaries between them are maintained. And yes, that led to various conflict, but it's also leading to a lot of conflict right now where we dissolve all these boundaries and send Muslims into Europe and all types of religions and people and just mix them into these secular nations and say, well, you know, it's good for the economy. Our GDP might go up. Some of them might get a job, although half of them are on social security or social services being paid for by the state. I mean, look at Germany, look at France, look at Britain, look at America with all the immigrants and how much money they're given. So it's only orthodoxy that allows a young person in the West, let's say specifically in America, to rediscover objective truth. I mean, we could say, well, they could be scientists and they could find the objective truth. Well, then they can't justify it. Their worldview is kind of fallacious, and they're back into the modernist project, which is failing, right? Modernity is going to end. And this is why people are so excited about the post-World War II consensus being undermined, is that modernity, you can feel it. Something is happening in culture where the historical order, basically for the last 200 years, seems to kind of be reshifting in certain ways. And we can't really put our finger on it. It's not like Trump is, he's not going to be the great reformer that some people or some of the supporters think that he is. He is a reformer in a way, but what he's trying to do is just reform the modernist project in a way in which is more beneficial to America, instead of the modernist structure which existed before, which is to self-destruct America in pursuit for a globalist one world order. So with everybody being aware of these things, it's orthodoxy that allows them to find identity. It's orthodoxy that allows them to find meaning. It's orthodoxy that allows them to sort of step outside of modernity. This is what it means to have an orthodox phronema. This is what it means that orthodoxy is a lifestyle. It's not a belief system, because if it's just a belief system, you're just a consumer in the market of spiritual ideas who's just consuming these ideas. That's not what orthodoxy is. You don't consume the ideas. You go and participate in the life of the church, which is the body of Christ. Therefore, participating in Christ and participating and working out your own salvation. That is the ultimate meaning. Young people are looking for something like this. And our conversation today on the light journey, encountering saints, miracles, and sacred places, is a way in which people can, young people who may not be aware, can actually begin to immerse themselves. Go to monastic communities, go to St. Anthony's, check out Fort Ross in California, go to the beautiful churches around the country, go see Father Josiah at St. Andrews, go see Father Turbo at St. Mary's of Egypt, and participate. This is living. And that's what it provides Americans with, a deeper historic identity that they could have if they were only choosing based on what the American marketplace provides you. And so that's why this conversation is important. And that's why we're going to be diving into a little deeper. So thank you again, Robert John Hammond, for sponsoring the stream. Really appreciate you, brother. Rebel Umbrian throws in 20, says, wasn't able to mention this last stream, but I noticed how you pronounce Versailles. I live in Milan and appreciate it when people know how to pronounce Versailles properly. God bless, brother. Well, thank you very much. Usually it's somebody criticizing my pronunciation. I'm just a dumb American who bastardizes everything into my own vernacular. So I appreciate that, Rebel. Thank you very much, brother. Jeremiah Johnson throws in $2. Orthodox Cross. Thank you so much, brother. Really appreciate that. And Screwed Up throws in, renewed his COTEL Crew membership. Says, God bless Dr. Harry. Well, thank you so much, brother. Really appreciate that support. Very excited for the future and maybe all these new projects and some potential new exposure. And I'll be, after Chase's wedding, so I'll be going to Chase Haggard's wedding at the end of May, and I'll be actually being able to I'll be meeting Jim Bob and his wife for the first time. So I've hung out plenty of times with Chase and the Wilsons, but never met Jim Bob in person. So the end of this month, Jim Bob, myself, my wife, and then Rachel and Andrew, we're all staying at the same hotel there in Milwaukee for Chase's wedding. But when I get back from that, from Chase's wedding, I'm going to be participating in so many more debates. So I'm really looking forward to getting on the debate circuit, if you will, and getting into some of these circles. So checking the dono chat, Holland the Good just threw in a very generous super chat. Thank you so much, bro. He throws in $100 super chat on dono chat and says, hope all is well. Looking forward to more content and hopefully debates. Talking about debates, did you see Ubi and Voice of Reason debate? Just curious to know your thoughts. Anyway, have a blessed evening. Well, thank you so much, Holland the Good, for that generous support. I did not see the Ubi Petrus Voice of Reason debate. Maybe I'll check it out. I heard some people talking about it on X, and it seemed like, and now this is biased, this is all the Orthodox people I follow that checked it out. They said Ubi Petrus basically won in the opening statements, that his opening statement already refuted everything that Voice of Reason said. I'll have to check it out. I'm not sure. So anyways, let me check that. Thank you so much, Holland the Good. Really appreciate that support, man. And let's see here. So if you want to support my work, one of the best things you can do is go to my website and become a website member. Let me pull this up for you guys. We have exclusive video content up at the website, as well as all the show notes. People are asking me, how do I get some of your show notes? $5 a month. That's it. They're all posted up there on the website. And so if you would like to support my work or join our premium members think tank, which will be meeting this Wednesday, and what it is a group of basically Orthodox men all around the world, very, very smart and professional men. And we talk about the latest things happening around the world. And so if that's something you'd be interested in, please join us, grab a membership. We would love to have you. It's a great way to support my work as well. And you can do that with that link right there. Also, if anybody's interested in a one-on-one session, setting up a one-on-one session to get into a private Zoom meeting, and we can talk about any topic your heart desires, you can do so with this link right here. And again, if you would like to sponsor a stream, major shout out to John for sponsoring today's. You can do so with this link right here. If you have a topic you'd like me to cover in a live stream, purchase a sponsored stream, I'll reach out to you, kind of tell me the insights, the framework of the topic, and then I'll spend a full day doing research, diving into it, and then presenting it here on YouTube. So if that's something you'd be interested in, check out that link right there. Also, I know that we're no longer in Lent, but if you're interested, our brother Seraphim, his book on fasting during the fasting periods, if that's something you would be interested in, you can do so with this link right here. Great book. Again, if you're interested in working out, it's got a foreword by Father Moses. Check this out. Get yourself the ebook copy, and you can help me out a little bit as well with that link right there. And then last thing I want to say, if you're in the market for any Orthodox items, check out orthodoxdepot.com. Orthodoxdepot.com. Use promo code COTEL, COTEL. You'll get 10% off. You'll be able to help me out as well as a good Orthodox company here in the U.S. So check that out if that's something you'd be interested in. Okay, now let's get into the nitty-gritty here with our topic discussing pilgrimage, miracles, in sacred places in America. The first thing I want to do is highlight to you guys. Oh, where'd the video go? There it is. The website. So this is the AmericanOrthodoxFilm.com. This is the project that John, our sponsor for today, is putting together. And I just want to, for everybody who maybe didn't see it in the live stream, I'm going to play the trailer to his documentary that should be actually finished here pretty soon. And so he said he's going to be posting stuff on his website. So if you guys want to continue to follow the new documentary, just check out his website. Again, the link I just shared here. But let's check out the trailer real quick.
St. Peter gave his life for Christ.
That story of his courage as a young man, it shows how the cross is something that we embrace in our weakness,
Christ, Jesus Christ our God, hallowed this land in the streams of Peter's blood.
People are hungry. The world is very loud and noisy.
People are dissatisfied. They're restless. And they're looking for answers to that restlessness.
People in general have the sense that something's not right, there's not enough.
They are burdened with this question, what is my identity? Who am I? When Peter the Alliot was being persecuted, he kept repeating over and over again, all the stories say, I am a Christian.
This is Holy Land because of the saints.
Faith is something lived, and it's something that we enter into. We want to know God.
We're saved by people like St. Peter. We're saved by everyone who bears their cross.
So as I said, this documentary should be out here pretty soon. So do support our brother. I know he's put in tons of work in putting these books together and putting this documentary together. And John's been a great voice for Orthodoxy. And actually, John, if you're watching, there's a few people in the chat that said they see you at all the monasteries and retreats around California. So sounds like you're definitely walking the walk. People in the chat, Orthodox Boomer Grandma. So shout out to Alexandria. She said she sees you all the time. So anyways, that's the documentary that he's working on, and all of his books are kind of putting, it's all about Orthodoxy in America in different respects. And so we're talking about this one today, in which you can purchase the book from this link right here. Let me share that with you guys. And we did the first one on American Orthodoxy, which you can get in the next stream. He sponsored another stream, and we're not going to be discussing it this video, but this is on A Voice in the Wilderness, reflection on the life and legacy of Father Seraphim Rose. And so Father Seraphim Rose has a section in this book, but we're going to skip it because in the future we're going to be doing a whole stream that John sponsored all on the life and legacy of Father Seraphim Rose. So we're going to save Father Seraphim later. But again, if you want to get John's book, support his work, just go to Amazon. You can use that link. If you just click on his name, you'll see the other books pop up as well. And you can see them right here. Light Journey, American Orthodox, and Voice in the Wilderness. All $14.99. And I'll say that the Voice of the Wilderness is the biggest book. So check that out if you guys want to. Oh, hey, Alexandria says, I got all the books too. Yeah. It's good stuff. And it's very, very readable, very approachable. It's not like these are theological or historical. I mean, it touches on theology. It touches on history. It touches on culture, but it's way, way more digestible. So these are great reads if you guys are interested. Now, I'm going to open up. I'm going to read, let's see here, a little bit of the book to get you guys kind of introduced to John, part of his writing style. But then I want to get into the Iveron icon. And so let me just read a few sections here of the book. And then we got this great video. If you guys don't follow this YouTube channel, this is a great YouTube channel called Harmony. It's an Orthodox YouTube channel called Harmony. I'm subscribed to it. We're going to be watching this video on the MERS streaming icon of Hawaii, which is the Iveron icon. But this is a great YouTube channel. It's got 181,000 subscribers. He basically puts out like highly edited videos, but they're very impactful, very, very good. And you can see some of them have like tons of views. So he's doing great work over there. Shout out to, I've never talked to the guy, don't know who he is, but shout out to Harmony YouTube channel. He's doing great edited videos for Orthodoxy and Orthodox apologetics. And you look at some of these, like The Mystery of the Eastern Orthodox Church has 1.8 million views. I Am Bible Anime, 1.1 million. So dude's definitely getting views over there. So shout out to him. We're going to watch we're going to watch the video on the Iveron icon in just a moment. So let me let me come back to it, and let me introduce you a little bit to John. So this is the concluding introduction to John's book. So the first introduction to it, I'm going to read basically the last 4 paragraphs to kind of give you a feel for the framework of the book and what he's trying to introduce people to. Because this book is it is absolutely approachable for somebody who's not Orthodox and doesn't know Orthodoxy. I think that's why he's making them. So it began. So where I'm going to begin, this is the heart of Orthodoxy, an unbroken chain stretching back to the apostles, through the desert fathers and the martyrs, through the saints who gave their lives to keep the flame of faith alive. And now, here in America, it finds new expression, new life in unexpected places. From the bustling streets of New York to the quiet forests of California, from the plains of Alaska to the deserts of Arizona, Orthodoxy has taken root in this land, growing in ways no one could have predicted. This book is a modern-day pilgrimage through those places and stories. It begins with Fort Ross, where Russian missionaries planted the seeds of Orthodoxy on American soil over 200 years ago, and it follows the paths of those early saints who brought the faith to this new world. But the journey does not stop there. It moves into the present, into the lives of those who carry on this ancient faith today, the monks who left everything behind to pray in the desert of Arizona, the priests who serve in small parishes, the lay people who find themselves unexpectedly drawn to this strange and beautiful way of life. It is about Father Seraphim Rose, who searched for truth in the wilderness and became a bridge to the ancient church for so many seekers. It is about Brother Jose Munoz, who guarded a miraculous icon with his life and became a martyr of love. It is about Elder Ephraim, who brought the monastic life of Mount Athos to North America, building spiritual heavens in the most unlikely places. And it's about you, the reader, wherever you are on your journey. Maybe you are searching for something deeper, something real in a world that seems to offer nothing but illusions. Maybe you have heard of Orthodoxy and wondered what it is, or perhaps you have already taken the first steps on this path and want to know more. This book is for you, to accompany you on your way, to show you the stories of others who have walked this path and invite you to see the beauty of this faith with your own eyes. You will meet people who are born into the faith, whose grandparents and great-grandparents crossed the oceans to bring Orthodoxy to America. You will meet those who discovered it later in life, coming from every background imaginable, finding in Orthodoxy something they've been searching for all along. You will hear stories of miracles, of healings, of lives transformed by grace in ways that defy explanation. You will see faith alive in the cities, in the countryside, in monasteries, in small mission churches, in cathedrals, in simple homes where families gather to pray. This is a pilgrimage that invites you to step into the unknown, to walk the narrow path where the saints have walked, to find the ancient faith in a new world. It is a journey of discovery, of wonder, of finding God not only in the places we expect, but in the places we least expect. It is a journey that is at once deeply personal and universal, for it touches on the most profound questions of life. Who am I? Why am I here? And where am I going? So come with me, come with all those who have come before and all those who will come after. Let us walk together in the mystery, into the light, into the ancient faith that is alive today as it ever was. Let us begin this modern pilgrimage and see where it takes us. The road is long, but the way is open. The journey has only just begun. And so then he begins the first chapter on the Iveron icon of the Mother of God. And so before I read about it, I'm going to introduce you guys to it. So here's, and a lot of what I'm going to show you guys through here is just to have a little bit more engaging presentation of the information. John kind of mentions everything here in the book, but the Iveron icon comes during the iconoclastic period, right? So it was during the 9th century, this icon, so the 800s. So this is the second iconoclasm within the Byzantine Empire. And it floated in a miraculous way on the sea to the holy mountain of Mount Athos. The monks of the Georgian Iveron Monastery on Athos saw the icon in the sea, upheld upon a fiery pillar, having received instructions in a dream from the Mother of God. St. Gabriel the Hagurite walked upon the water and brought the icon to the Iveron Monastery. God has many times wrought miracles through the icon, the Mother of God, not only through the original icon, but also through copies of it, one of which was brought to Moscow in 1648 during the reign of Tsar Alexei Mikhailovich. John begins, he presents it more in a narrative structure. It's less like Wikipedia and more like a story. And so he's talking about how the storm of iconoclasm raged through the Byzantine Empire. Soldiers marched with orders to seize and destroy all holy images. In their zeal, they scoured every village, every home, searching for icons hidden by the faithful. And then it says, and then it's talking about a widow, a knock at the door, then a crash. A soldier stormed in, eyes wild with fanaticism. One of them, a hulking man with a sneer etched on his face, spotted the icon. Without a word, he pulled a spear from his belt and thrust it into the face of the Theotokos. Blood flowed, real blood, trickling from the wound, bright red and unmistakable. The soldiers froze, their bravado shattered by the impossible sight. They stumbled back, eyes wide in terror, murmuring curses. They fled into the night, leaving the widow trembling before the miracle she had just witnessed. As the night deepened, the widow and her son knelt before the icon, their prayers mingling with tears and awe and desperation. They knew the soldiers would return, likely with reinforcements. The widow and her son needed to save the icon. Under the cover of darkness, they made their way to the sea, the holy image wrapped carefully in a cloth. At the shore, the widow spoke softly, her voice trembling but resolute. Mother of God, protect this icon as you have protected me. Let it find safe harbor. And then she puts it in the ocean. Far away on the holy mountain of Mount Athos, monks of the Iveron Monastery gathered to pray. It was quite an evening, the kind that soaked the soul in peace. But as the sun set, something extraordinary caught their eyes. A fiery pillar rose from the sea, stretching from the water to the heavens, burning brighter than the sun itself. For days, the monks watched this mysterious light. What was it? A divine sign? The hand of God reaching down to earth? Finally, they could bear the suspense no longer. A group of monks descended to the shoreline. There, floating serenely on the water, was the icon of the Mother of God, untouched by the waves, gleaming with an unworldly radiance. As they approached, the icon seemed to withdraw, drifting further out to sea. And then what we just read, it wasn't until Gabriel, Saint Gabriel, actually went out onto the water. So the sea breeze carried the sweet smell of incense as Gabriel, barefoot and unafraid, stepped onto the water. Step by step, he walked upon the waves as though upon dry land. The icon waited for him, and when he reached it, Gabriel lifted it in his arms, feeling the weight of holiness settle in his soul. Triumphant, Gabriel carried the icon back to the monastery. The monks greeted it with hymns of thanksgiving and placed it in the sanctuary, vowing to guard this divine treasure with their lives. But the Theotokos had other plans. The next morning, the icon was gone. Panic rippled through the monastic community until a monk discovered the image hanging above the gates of the monastery. The monks returned the icon to its place of honor in the church, but the following morning it had moved again, and each time they found it above the gates. Finally, the Mother of God appeared once more to Gabriel. Quote, "Do not seek to hide me away," she told him. Quote, "For I shall guard this monastery. I will protect you all, both now and in the age to come." Unquote. And so that is the story of the original Iveron icon, okay? And the replica, the miracle-working, mirror-streaming icon of Hawaii is a replica, which we're going to talk about, we're going to read about here in a little bit. But now I want to introduce you to this video, and we're going to watch this by Harmony, which is a 14-minute video covering the mirror-streaming icon of Hawaii.
Greek elder, a friend, told me that icons are windows into heaven. He said, what's interesting is this window's been left open. He said, you know, other icons around, I think might like streaming myrrh. And since that time, there have been 10 or 12 that have streamed myrrh. There's one in Tullytown, there's one in Taylor up in Pennsylvania, there's a couple in Canada, 2 in California, and several in Russia and Georgia, 1 in Romania.
So if you don't understand what he's talking about, the voice, and it's going to cut to the edited video, this is just a clip he began the video with, is the priest talking about the myrrh streaming icon, and how when it's placed to other icons, they begin to stream myrrh as well. And he highlighted 10 to 12 different instances around the world where that has happened.
So it's very interesting. Where did it went behind and up.
Over 3 months ago, sometime around May, June, or July of 2007, my wife and I noticed a hint of the scent of roses in the area surrounding our icon corner.
And so what he's reading is, let me see if I can find the website. Here it is right here. So he's reading this. This is the website. So the wonder-working Iveron icon of Hawaii. This is the letter by Father Nectarios, who is in possession of the icon right now. And it talks a little bit about how they came about, when the icon began streaming myrrh, and this was, again, I could read all this to you, but I'll let the video do it. Anyways, they missed a Vesper service. They usually don't. They were both sick. And then that night when he was working in the office around 10 o'clock in the evening, p.m., his cat, which normally never goes around his icon corner, began sniffing the smell. And in the weeks leading up to this period, Father Nectarios, deacon at the time, kept smelling like this intense aroma of roses, like he was standing in a field filled with roses. And his wife didn't smell it, and other people who came to the house didn't smell it. But when he saw the cat beginning to smell his icon corner, he thought, oh, that's interesting. So he went and grabbed the cat eventually, and he smelt it too. Again, the scent of roses began to fill the room, and he began searching, and he saw on one of the icons, an icon of Christ on the cross, that it had a week before dripped one drop of myrrh, and he didn't touch it, and it stayed on the icon. He showed his wife. They were both blown away. They were kind of flabbergasted by it, but they didn't touch it. They didn't leave it, and they didn't tell anybody. And then weeks later, the Iveron icon, which was on top of a bookshelf, this is where they're searching for the smell. And then his wife eventually grabs the Iveron icon and pulls it down, and it's covered in myrrh. And they discovered, well, the scent's coming from this thing. And then I'll play the rest of the video so I don't ruin anything. But that gives you a little bit of a context there.
In our home chapel, something made us look at our cross icon of Christ, located behind our family reliquary. We noticed a small bead of liquid around the side wound of the image of Christ, where the soldier pierced his side with a lance. The liquid smelled very sweet, like myrrh. We told no one of this and proceeded to keep an eye on the icon for any new developments or any possible continuation of the streaming. The bead of myrrh eventually dried out, and we eventually forgot about it. Now on to the most recent development. During the last week of September, I began to notice an unbelievably strong smell of myrrh at my home, in my car, even at work. I couldn't explain it. Was it all in my head? I asked my wife, and she said she didn't smell anything. So I spoke with several other people who visited our home, and they too said they didn't smell anything. One of these peoples was our Serbian Orthodox Kuma. She too couldn't smell anything. Now I was convinced it was all in my imagination. And this was on September 27th, the feast of the exaltation of the cross. Then, in the first week of October, my wife and I were extremely ill, and we missed Vespers that night. We didn't miss too many of the church's divine services, so we did take notice of the date, October 6th, feast day of the conception of St. John the Baptist. Around 10:30 p.m. that night, I was working in my office, which also doubles as our home chapel, where our icon corner is located. So my cat walked into the office and began to sniff around as if he smelled something, though I myself didn't smell anything. He proceeded to walk toward the area where our family's reliquaries are kept. I thought this was strange since he would never go near the reliquaries. Amazingly, something always stopped him. And he's a nosy cat. Yet this time, he stood on his hind legs and sniffed around, I assume in order to figure out whatever the smell was that he was smelling, though I still didn't smell anything. I proceeded to pick him up, and then I noticed the scent. It was strong, even overwhelming. Never in my life have I smelled anything like that. I couldn't explain why I hadn't smelled it before. It was like 1,000 roses had fallen into the room. I crossed myself and guarded myself with a Jesus prayer. I put the cat down and proceeded to look at the icons. I admit, I was afraid. Until I finally came to the icon of the cross and noticed that the bead of myrrh by the side wound of Christ was still dry. For a split second, I regained some composure, even as the smell of roses was getting stronger. I then looked down and my hand was wet. It was myrrh. How did it get there? The icon was dry. Or was it? I then noticed that the left knee of the image of our Lord was forming a bead of myrrh right before my eyes. I then called out to my wife and she came running. And when I asked her if she spilled anything on the icons, she said no, she hadn't gone near them. I showed her the icon and she was in shock. In my office, I have 2 bookshelves. At the top of them are icons. We have many icons, probably too many icons. I stood on my toes to reach for one of the icons on the top of the bookshelves, and my wife did the same. Finally, I grabbed the icon of Iveron, given to me by Father Anatoly. It was completely wet, and then the smell got even stronger. Even my wife could smell it. For those of you who don't know my wife, her sense of smell is very limited. She's only capable of smelling citrus scents. We were afraid. We asked one another if we cleaned or anointed the icons recently, and both of us said no. So what's going on? I asked. I put the icons back where they were. We took a few pictures with our digital camera. Then I said an akathist to the Mother of God in honor of her Iveron icon and went to bed. Or at least tried to. The next day, Sunday, October 7th, after much debate, we left the icons at home and went to church. After the liturgy, we spoke to our Kuma, who instructed us to speak with the priest immediately. We told Father Anatoly what had happened, and he listened patiently, then said, "Bring the icons to church." We then arranged with the priest to bring the icons to church the next Wednesday, October 10th. And up until that Wednesday, the icons continued to stream. I collected the myrrh on cotton, and before them I said prayers for my sister who was ill and for several other people. And the next day my sister called my father to say that her doctor can't explain it, but her pancreas, which had completely stopped functioning, had returned to its normal state, and her diabetes was under control. We couldn't wait until Wednesday. On that Wednesday, October 10th, we brought the icons to the church and placed them on 2 anagolia, or lecterns, in the center of the church. Father Anatoly inspected them and wiped them down with cotton and proceeded to start the service of the akathist hymn of the Iveron icon. After the service, the icons were wiped down again. They had streamed a little during the service. Father Anatoly then confirmed to us that it is definitely streaming myrrh, and that it is a very pure myrrh. He asked us to leave the icons in church for the time being. No one knew about the icons. They were safe there. The next Saturday, October 13th, just happened to be Clean the Church Day. We were preparing our church for the upcoming feasts, like our parish's feast day, Christmas, the Serbian bishops visiting, etc. And while we were cleaning the church, we couldn't take our eyes off of the 2 myrrh-streaming icons. The icon of the Mother of God seems to smell more like roses than the other icon. The cross has a spicier smell to it. I can't really explain it. Not many folks could wait for Vespers that evening. Our Kuma later remarked to me that she's the doubting Thomas and really couldn't believe it until she saw it for herself. Totally understandable. She didn't realize that the icons were actually streaming as we were cleaning, because they don't stream continuously. She venerated the cross and kissed the feet of our Lord. She got a nice helping of myrrh in her mouth, like the doubting apostle who put his fingers in Christ's hands and side. She put her mouth right on the myrrh, where myrrh wasn't supposed to be. I couldn't help but laugh. The next day, Sunday, October 14th, was the Feast of the Protection of the Mother of God, and Father Anatoly revealed the icons to the people. The icon streamed quite heavily. There was enough myrrh for everyone, and they have continued streaming ever since. Many have come to see them. Russians, Greeks, Serbs, Roman Catholics, Protestants. All who approach the icons feel the grace of God. There have been days when the icons have been completely dry, while on other days they are covered in myrrh.
Look at this. It's completely full.
Yet, whether they stream or not, they continuously give off an extremely strong scent of roses. It's truly a miracle. I sometimes wonder if it's a warning. Now that I look back, it seems that revelation has been the central theme of late. We revealed the fragrance to our Kamavi on the Feast of the Exaltation of the Cross. We found the icons giving myrrh and revealed them to our priests on the Feast of the Conception of St. John the Baptist. He was the one man who revealed Christ to the world. Our priest revealed the myrrh-streaming icons to the church on the feast day of the protection of the Mother of God. These cannot be coincidences. Our parish is dedicated to the original myrrh-streaming Iveron icon, an icon that had never traveled to Hawaii. Brother Jose wanted to come here, but he never made it. I must confess to you, sometimes I feel that our little fellow Orthodox brethren on the mainland have forgotten our little parish, our little community. Living out here in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, we struggle to survive as an Orthodox parish, struggle to pay the bills, struggle to make the rent. I sometimes wonder, has the Lord forgotten us? Are we to struggle forever? Have we done something wrong? Have we angered you, O Lord? Whether or not our fellow clergy, our fellow Orthodox faithful have forgotten us, one thing is clear. The Most Holy Mother of God has not forgotten us. She has not abandoned us. She will not abandon us. Through these icons, I now have hope that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Whether or not we are blessed to have a church of our own, it really doesn't matter. God has shown us that He has not forgotten us, and that's all that is needed. God is telling us that He is real. Dare we ignore this revelation? Dare we turn our backs on this great miracle? Dare we forget Christ? May God forgive us if we do. Since this discovery, the Mother of God's Iveron icon has been traveling across the world, with Father Nectari being her guardian. Adam, father of all mankind in paradise, knew the sweetness of the love of God. And so when for his sin he was driven forth from the Garden of Eden and was widowed of the love of God, he suffered grievously and lamented with a mighty moan. And the whole desert rang with his lamentations. His soul was racked as he thought, I have grieved my beloved Lord. He sorrowed less after paradise and the beauty thereof. He sorrowed that he was bereft of the love of God, which insatiably, at every instant, draws the soul to him. He was heartsick for God, and this was his cry.
Okay, so that does it for the video on the Iveron icon. If you want to check out Harmony YouTube channel, go subscribe to them. Okay, so I'm going to skip forward now through some of the book here. Again, you guys can go purchase this on Amazon. The next chapter, the Night of Souls, it talks a little bit about John's own experience and his sort of search, his nihilism and his search for meaning, and ultimately landing him in prison on charges with marijuana possession and a loaded gun in his car after being pulled over. And so when he was, and I'll read this, the Night of Miracles. So this is now John in prison, the author of this book, the director of the documentary we're looking at, the sponsor of today's stream. He says, as I lay there, teetering on the edge of life and death, the world continued to turn, oblivious to my suffering. But in the same night, as I faced my own mortality, Brother Jose was being ushered into eternity. His life, Brother Jose, the man who had the Iveron icon, the original one, his life dedicated to the Mother of God was violently cut short, but his death was not the end. The icon he had guarded, the icon that had poured forth myrrh and miraculous streams, was now missing. Its whereabouts unknown, but its power undiminished. In the years to come, I would learn of Brother Jose's story of the miracles associated with the icon and the mysterious events surrounding its disappearance. And in those stories, I would find echoes of my own journey, a journey from darkness to light, from death to life, from despair to hope. My affinity for Brother Jose grew as I learned more about him, and I felt an inexplicable connection to his sacrifice. Brother Jose was born in Chile and descended from the ancient Spanish family of Cortes, in which the Virgin Mary was especially revered, and all the firstborns were named after Joseph, the betrothed and protector of the Mother of God. Brother Jose was 12 years old when, walking by the Russian Orthodox Church in Santiago, he was attracted by the sound of singing and went inside. There he became acquainted with Archbishop Leonti of blessed memory, and under his influence, Jose was baptized into the Orthodox Church 2 years later with his mother's consent. As a university student, Jose was studying theology when Metropolitan Vitali, on a trip to Chile, learned of the youth's monastic aspirations and invited him to Canada. Jose lived for about a year at Holy Transfiguration Monastery in Montreal, but he left to live on his own. While maintaining a strict monastic lifestyle to the end, a talented artist, he took a job teaching at the University of Montreal and began studying iconography. That night, October 31st, 1997, was not the end. It was the beginning of my path to redemption and my return to Christ, and of my discovery of the ancient faith that had been hidden from me for so long. As the steel doors of the prison clanged shut behind me, another door was opening, a door to a life I had never imagined, a life of faith, hope, and love. And so now we move to the next chapter, and he gets into Fort Ross. We're not going to read sections from this because the book, the one that we did on American Orthodox, we talked a lot about Fort Ross, but I did have a video, not so much to talk about Fort Ross, but just to kind of show you guys what it looks like. So I'll read a section just to give you, a flavor for what he's saying. Fort Ross was established as a multi-purpose outpost, a trading hub, an agricultural station, a place to hunt sea otters for their venerable. Here, let me pull up Fort Ross. So here's Fort Ross. You see it in California. It's north of the Bay Area. You see the star down here is LA. So it's just north of the Bay Area and in Northern California. And so it was a place to hunt sea otters for their valuable pelts and a potential barrier against the northward expansion of the Spanish missions. A wooden palisade was constructed, enclosing barracks, workshops, and a chapel dedicated to the Holy Trinity. Here, under the sound of waves and the shadows of ancient trees, a small but vibrant community began to emerge. From the beginning, the Orthodox faith was at the center of the life of Fort Ross. The chapel, with its simple wooden cross, became the heart of the settlement. The prayers and the liturgies offered by the contemporary priests were a source of spiritual nourishment for the Russian settlers, Aleut hunters, and even some of the local Kashaya Pomo who lived nearby. Orthodoxy transplanted to the distant land began to take root and grow in the rich soil of Northern California. And it talks about the story of St. Innocent of Alaska. Innocent visited Fort Ross during his many journeys from Alaska. And I did have a thing on St. Innocent right here, Apostle to the Americas, Enlightener of the Aleuts. We're not going to read it because we got to get a lot done, but I will share the link if you guys want to read this little article on St. Innocent. There you go, right there. So back to Fort Ross. He talks about St. Innocent of Alaska, a Renaissance missionary, the Angels of Akun, some of the missionary work of St. Innocent, a life of sacrifice and perseverance. So St. Innocent's missionary efforts were not without immense personal sacrifice. In a 14-month span, he traveled nearly 15,000 miles by foot, dog sled, reindeer sleigh, and kayak. Okay, so we're talking about St. Innocent right here. For 14 months, so just a little bit over a year, he traveled 15,000 miles by foot, dog sled, reindeer sleigh, and kayak, enduring extreme weather and physical hardship. His willingness to face these challenges was driven by his love for his flock and an unwavering commitment to the gospel. Even after the tragic loss of his wife, Catherine, St. Innocent's dedication did not waver. He sent his children to Irkutsk for their education and took monastic vows, adopting the name Innocent. As a bishop and later metropolitan of Moscow, he continued to advocate for the spiritual and material well-being of his Alaskan flock, ensuring that the light of Orthodoxy would continue to shine in the northernmost reaches of the world. And then it talks a little bit more about the legacy of St. Innocent, St. Tikhon and his relationship to Fort Ross, St. John the Wonder Worker and his pilgrimage to Fort Ross. So St. John was known for his tireless work, traveling frequently between his diocese. So this is St. John of San Francisco, St. John of Shanghai, and the far reaches of the Russian diaspora. In his journeys, he made a point to visit Fort Ross, drawn by the memory of the early Russian settlers and the spirit of missionary work that had been sown there. He came not just as a bishop, but a pilgrim, eager to walk the paths of his predecessors. So again, we're talking about Fort Ross here. And so here's some of the pictures. So I'm going to show you this video. We're not going to watch the whole thing. I'm going to click through it. But this is some YouTube channel, History Hunters. I don't know. I don't really watch them. But it's them walking through Fort Ross so you can kind of get a feel for it. In fact, I'm going to mute it just so we don't have to hear them talk. So with over 100 men, including 25 Russians and 80 Aleut fur hunters, the group was armed with cannon fodder. So it's just talking about the construction of Fort Ross. That's one of the kayaks that they would use to travel. And that's just some of the stuff there. The last owners, born in Ohio, kind of shows you how the fort functioned, how they would load ships, some of the pelts, and then they're walking around the inside of the grounds of the fort. So you guys can see this.
Or old it has that, or it appears to be. Oh, that's cool.
Now, I think this is so cool. Now, imagine, again, in the mid-1800s, there's nothing up here. You build this fort. You build it close to the shore so you can load ships. And you look out and you just see this beautiful, beautiful expanse of the Pacific Ocean there. I mean, just really, really cool.
What's cool?
Inside of the building, the stuff they have in there, old tables, and it perfect. Well, that has newer.
So that's the inside of another building. Just showing you guys what it all kind of looks like. Some bells, church bells. Now, a lot of the stuff has been refurbished and reconstructed so that it's in a much better state for tourists, and it being a California state park. So, but look at this view. So you walk out of the fort. Look at this. Bam. And this is, I mean, this fort is essentially a sort of colonial artifact of Russia in America. So pretty cool piece of history there. And you can see, and here is the Orthodox grave that they have, the Orthodox cemetery, I should say. They have all these crosses of people that have passed away or perished that were at the fort. So pretty cool stuff. Again, another very important site for Orthodoxy in America. And I haven't been to Fort Ross, but I do want to make that part of the journey. One day I'd like for Jeannie and I to go do a bit of a Orthodox pilgrimage of the West Coast. So I'd love to go up to Abbot Trifon in the monastery up there in outside Seattle, and just go to some of the churches. My wife's never seen Holy Virgin Cathedral there in San Francisco, and just kind of make our trip around. Fort Ross would definitely be on there. So anyways, that kind of wraps up that chapter. And then the next one gets into St. John, the Wonder Worker of San Francisco, which in our video on Saints of America, we dove a lot into the life of St. John Maximovich. So I'm not going to say too much about this chapter. Great chapter. So highly recommend. He was a mentor to Father Seraphim Rose. John speaks a little bit about that. So he says, when Eugene Rose, who had later become Father Seraphim Rose, first encountered Orthodoxy, he was a young man searching for truth in a world that seemed increasingly devoid of it. He had been exploring various philosophies and religious traditions, looking for something that resonated with the deepest longings of his heart. When he stepped into a Russian Orthodox church in San Francisco for the first time, he felt something he had never felt before, a sense of coming home. Eugene soon came under the guidance of Archbishop John, who took a particular interest in the young man's spiritual development. Archbishop John saw in him a deep thirst for God, a hunger for truth, and began to mentor him closely. He taught Eugene to pray, to read the lives of the saints, and to immerse himself in the teachings of the church fathers. And then it goes on, talks about the modern relevance of St. John's life and miracles. Many who come to venerate his relics at the Holy Virgin Cathedral speak of a sense of peace and a sense that they are standing in the presence of something divine. They come with prayers and petitions asking for healing, for guidance and comfort in times of distress. And time and again, they leave with their prayers answered, their hearts lifted, and their spirits renewed. And I actually have a friend, I'm not going to say his name because some of you guys might know. This is the inside of Holy Virgin Cathedral. This is where St. John's body is. I don't know, let's do inside. We need more photos. He's off to the right. So if you guys have ever been there, I highly recommend you guys go into Holy Virgin Cathedral. If you walk in, there's really not any great photos. When you walk in, he's off to the right and his body's still there, and you can see how it's still uncorrupt. But I have a friend who actually went there praying to St. John for intercession, and very weird thing happened. I'm not going to get into all the details, but essentially, he was somewhere else. He was doing his own Orthodox pilgrimage. He was at St. Anthony's for a conference and stuff, and believed that he was out of money. He checked his wallet. There was no more cash in his wallet. Upon going back, he wanted to stop in San Francisco for a few days. So he got on the plane after the conference, flew to San Francisco, went to Holy Virgin, and and prayed to St. John. And according to my friend, who I'll keep anonymous because you guys would know who he is, he said the day after he got back from Holy Virgin and praying for John, for clarity, for a sign, for something to further his journey as an Orthodox Christian and some of the struggles he was facing, he went to the post office because he needed to send something out, and he opened his wallet, and there was a $20 bill in there. And he believes he can't, he's questioned himself. Was it there the whole time? But he swears that for like 4 days, he knew he didn't have any cash. And after leaving, and he felt like this was a sign. This was a clear sign of something miraculous. So very interesting things can happen. And so that was just one little anecdote regarding miracles and things that happen regarding St. John of Shanghai and visiting Holy Virgin Cathedral and stuff like that. Yeah, their chanters are fantastic. Now, if you want a long liturgy, go to Holy Virgin Cathedral on a hierarchical liturgical day. Oh my gosh, I was there for almost 4 hours. And this was before I was brought into the church. So I was still sort of an inquirer. Wasn't even a catechumen. I was making a habit of going to services to different Orthodox churches. Obviously, this is the most beautiful one in the Bay Area. And it just happened to be that the bishop was there that day. And the liturgy was like 3 hours, almost 3 hours and 40 minutes long. And there was a baptism. I mean, it was my feet. The puppies were barking. Let's just put it that way. So anyways, that's the chapter basically on St. John, miracle worker, St. John of Shanghai. Then he gets into St. Sebastian of Jackson. Now, this is a saint that I actually have not covered much. I spoke about him in the stream where we did on Orthodox Saints of North America, because St. Sebastian is incredibly important for bringing Serbian Orthodoxy to the United States. And I found this video on Orthodox Wisdom. It's 5 minutes. It's just a static video of the icon. But if you guys want me to play it, let me know. I can play it. Paul Baba said, St. John Maximovich is known for giving those in need a $20 American bill. Yeah, I didn't even mention that part. It's tied with another miracle regarding a woman in a hospital who was ill from St. John. And so this is why my buddy, he was aware of all this, because while he was at Holy Virgin, it was providential. He had the opportunity to speak with the priest, and he got his own private tour of St. John's stuff. So anyways, all that. And so he was very aware of the whole story. And that's why when he got back home, and then the next day went to the post office and saw a $20 bill in his wallet, he was convinced this was a miracle and a sign from St. John regarding his intercession. And it was very good and deeply profound for his own spiritual life. So, yeah. But thank you, Paul, for bringing that up. I totally got sidetracked. Didn't even mention that. Anyways, if you guys want me to play this video, I can. It's just 5 minutes and 30 seconds, and it talks about the life of St. Sebastian of Jackson or St. Sebastian of San Francisco. He goes by both, and him bringing Serbian Orthodoxy into the United States. Talks about how he's a Serbian immigrant. So the chapter talks about he's a Serbian immigrant in Northern California, the establishment of St. Sava, the Serbian Orthodox Church, personal pilgrimage to St. Sava Church. So John's talking about his experience going. And so he says, on this visit, I found myself drawn to the relics of St. Sebastian, which are enshrined in the church. They are housed in a simple reliquary placed near the iconostasis, where the faithful can come forward to venerate and seek his intercession. As I knelt before his relics, I felt a deep sense of peace, a connection to the countless others who had knelt there, who had sought the prayers of this holy man. I could feel the history of the place around me, the stories of those who had come before, the Serbian immigrants who had built this church, and their hands and their hearts, who had kept the faith alive in the distant land. I thought for countless times they must have gathered here in moments of joy and sorrow, their prayers mingling with the smoke of incense rising to the heavens. And then it talks about his broader missionary work, which I'll read. St. Sebastian's work in Jackson was just one part of his broader mission to bring the Orthodox faith to America. He traveled widely, serving communities across the United States, from Alaska to New York, from Chicago to Los Angeles. He established parishes, preached the gospel, and brought the sacraments to the faithful, no matter where they were. His dedication to the faith, his love for the people he served knew no bounds. He was a man of vision, seeing the potential for Orthodoxy in America long before others did. He understood that the future of the faith lay in reaching out to all people, regardless of their background or ethnicity. He worked tirelessly to establish a truly American Orthodoxy, one that honored the traditions of the past while embracing the realities of the present. Father Sebastian was also a prolific writer and translator. He authored numerous books, pamphlets, and articles in multiple languages, aiming to make the Orthodox faith accessible to as many people as possible. His writings reflect his deep understanding of the faith, his pastoral heart, and his desire to share the love of Christ with all. So that was a little bit about Saint Sebastian of Jackson. Again, I'll share this link. We can skip it, but I'm going to share this link with you guys in case you want to check it out. It's a good little quick overview. There weren't, I found a few videos on Saint Sebastian, but this was probably the best one, concise one that just went over his whole life. Next one was on the spiritual fathers and the mothers of America, talking about Saint Raphael, Alexis Toth, John Kucherov of Chicago, and Olga Michael of Alaska. So let's see here. I have one on Saint Alexis Toth. So we talked a lot about Saint Raphael of Brooklyn. I'm Antiochian. He's the one that kind of really developed the Antiochian diocese here in America, North America. So we talked a lot about Saint Raphael, major figure. I do want to read, though, he talks about a man of peace amidst conflict. And this little section on Saint Raphael I thought is really cool. So let me pull up Saint Raphael so we're looking at the right one. Saint Raphael of Brooklyn. Okay. So here's Saint Raphael. And so it says St. Raphael's role. So he's talking about the Battle of the Pacific Street, or Pacific Street exemplified his tireless work to keep the community united despite the challenge they faced from both external forces and internal divisions. St. Raphael's role during the battle was crucial. It was nearly midnight when the confrontation began. The Orthodox were on their way to visit an assault victim. But tensions quickly escalated when they encountered Mokarzel's group. St. Raphael, who believed he could mediate and stop the violence by engaging with Mokarzel directly, found himself in the center of a conflict that seemed to have no end. Some accounts suggest that a tense meeting proceeded with violence, while others claim the fight broke out immediately. Regardless, the resulting gunfight, with over 20 shots fired, ended with several injuries and arrests, including that of St. Raphael. The press portrayed the event differently, with some sources accusing St. Raphael of brandishing a gun, an allegation he vehemently denied. Despite his arrest and the challenges he faced, St. Raphael remained undeterred in his mission to serve as a shepherd to his people. His work extended far beyond the conflict on Pacific Street, when he went on to consecrate many churches and ordain countless priests, ensuring the growth of Orthodoxy across North America. For his steadfast dedication, he was canonized in the year 2000, remembered as a beacon of peace and unity. Alexis Toth, critical figure in the spread of Orthodoxy America, faced his own set of challenges. Born in 1853 in the Austro-Hungarian Empire, Alexis came to America to serve as a Greek Catholic priest in Minneapolis. However, upon his arrival in 1889, he was met with hostility from the local Roman Catholic bishop, who refused to recognize his ordination because of his married status. This confrontation marked the beginning of Alexis's long struggle to find a spiritual home for himself and his flock. And we talked about him in the Saints of North America because he brought his Eastern Rite Catholics into the Orthodox fold. Talks about St. John of Chicago, St. Olga of Alaska. We talked a lot about St. Olga in the last one. So we're going to skip to the next chapter, which is Father Seraphim Rhodes, which I said the next one we're going to be doing for John is all on Father Seraphim Rhodes. So we're going to skip this chapter just because I don't want to repeat anything. I want to make the next stream we do unique and have interesting content. So I don't want to give anything away because I really want to give the full presentation on the life and legacy of Father Seraphim Rhodes in the next one. But he has a great overview of the importance and why Father Seraphim Rhodes is such a key figure for us Orthodox Americans, because he himself is somebody who really kind of escaped the debauchery of modernity and found his home in Orthodoxy, and then was, again, depending on who you ask, as John highlights, even in the Orthodox world here in America, some find him too zealous. Not all clergy are huge fans of Father Seraphim Rhodes. While many people, especially the young people converting to Orthodoxy, find him as an inspiration, and his book Nihilism, Orthodoxy and the Religion of the Future, Genesis and the Creation of Man, the Orthodox survival guide. That book right there, the Orthodox Survival Guide, is about modernity. It is, in a sense, trying to demonstrate why Orthodoxy is not consistent with the intellectual lineage of Western civilization, and that it's something unique and something different. So Father Seraphim Rose has so many different books. He's incredibly important. I've edited and tried to reconstruct some of the audio of like 3 different of his lectures that are available on the YouTube channel here. So check those out if you're interested. He talks about the Platina Monastery, new monastic vision, controversies and contributions, depending on who you ask. The repose of Father Seraphim Rose in Northern California at St. Herman of surrounds St. Herman of Alaska Monastery in Platina. Talks a little bit about that, and we'll go over all that stuff. Now, the next chapter gets into Brother Jose Munoz, guardian of the Mer streaming icon. And I wanted to read some of this to you guys, because this is, again, getting back to the Iveron icon. Brother Jose is the one who had the icon before it disappeared, right? He was murdered. He had the original Iveron icon, the one that floated on the water, the one that's associated with the pillar of fire. And it is that icon that we now have the replica of. So anyways, Brother Jose was killed. To understand Brother Jose's role as the guardian of the Montreal Iveron icon, we must recall the story of the original Iveron icon told earlier in this book, how it journeyed miraculously from Nicaea to the Iveron Monastery on Mount Athos and became the monastery's protector. It was a copy of this sacred icon that Brother Jose Munoz Cortez encountered during his pilgrimage to Mount Athos in 1982. Born in Chile, he was an artist and iconographer. We talked about that. The monks at the Sketi of the Nativity of Christ on Mount Athos, where this replica of the Iveron icon was housed, noticed his devotion. They sensed that he had been chosen for a special purpose. The monks entrusted him with the icon, telling him that it would bring blessings to many in North America. Brother Jose accepted this sacred responsibility with humility, sensing a deep spiritual connection with the Mother of God. Little did he know that the true words of the monk would prove to be. When the icon began streaming myrrh in November of that year, Brother Jose's life took on a new mission. For 15 years, he traveled with the icon across North America, from cathedrals in New York to small mission churches in Canada, bringing the miraculous presence of the Mother of God to countless people everywhere. And so the next one I want to get into is the miracles associated with the icon. But what does it mean to be a guardian of such a mystery? For 15 years, Brother Jose faithfully cared for the icon, never seeking fame or recognition. The icon traveled far and wide, from the grand cathedrals of Europe to the humble mission churches of North America. Everywhere it went, it left a trail of grace. There were stories of the blind who began to see, of the paralyzed who stood and walked, of those who had lost all hope, finding new strength. I read the stories with fascination and wonder, not fully understanding, but feeling a deep stirring within me. How could a piece of wood and paint be the source of so much grace? It defied explanation, yet the evidence was undeniable. Lives were changed, bodies were healed, and souls were awakened. One of the most compelling stories involved a woman from Quebec who had suffered for years from a debilitating disease. When she came to venerate the icon with her family, she was frail, her face marked by years of suffering, her body supported by a wheelchair. Brother Jose quietly placed the icon before her, and as she reached out to touch it, she began to weep. The scent of myrrh filled the room, and a warmth spread through her body. To the astonishment of those around her, she stood up, tears streaming down her face. "I am healed," she whispered, as if afraid to believe her own words, and indeed she was. I read the story years later, long after Brother Jose had been taken from this world, but it stayed with me. I had my own encounter with the miraculous power of the Mother of God, but it came much later, in 2017, when I first encountered the Hawaiian Iveron icon, another burst streaming icon that seemed to continue the legacy of the Montreal icon. And then there was another, there was another story about the icon healing. Let me see. Okay, here it is. So Father Nectarios, who wrote, remember we just watched the Harmony video, And the harmony video was reading the letter right here by Father Nectarios. Okay. And he's the one that has the Mer streaming icon of Hawaii. He's in charge of it. Okay, right here. Okay, now Father Nectarios described a moment in Oxford. So when he took this icon to Oxford one time, Oxford, England, where a Romanian couple brought their severely afflicted young daughter to a small Moscow Patriarchate parish, seeking healing through the intercession of the Mother of God. Let's move back to the icon so people can see it. The child, her body ravaged by an excruciating condition that caused her skin to blister and burn. She sat silently as Bishop Irene anointed her with the miraculous myrrh. As the myrrh touched her wounds, she let out a soul-shaking scream that silenced the room. Even Father Nectarios, the guardian of the icon, who had witnessed countless miracles, found himself asking God the forbidden question: why? Why is this holy myrrh causing her pain? The family quickly left the church, the haunting cry still lingering in the air. The next morning, as they drove away from Oxford, Bishop Irene received a phone call. After answering, he could only exclaim, "Glory to God, glory to God, glory to God." When asked, he revealed the astounding news. The young girl had been completely healed overnight. Her parents, overcome with joy, discovered her giggling in her room, talking, quote, to a lady, unquote. When they opened the door, they found her wounds gone, her skin restored, and her pain lifted, a miracle of the Theotokos. Through tears, Bishop Irene reminded everyone that the saints are alive, longing to bring us closer to God, to love him, and to love one another as he commands us. It was a living testament to the reality of holiness and the boundless compassion of the Mother of God. Countless stories of healings and miracles continue to be documented, from those who have been cured from cancer and other disease to those who have found peace and solace in the face of despair. The Hawaiian icon, with its Montreal predecessor, is a living testament to the enduring love and mercy of the Mother of God. So I thought that was a great little story. Now, the next one is on Elder Ephraim of Arizona. Again, we've talked a lot about Elder Ephraim on the channel before. And he mentions he has a whole section on founding St. Anthony's, and that's what the next video I was going to show you guys is. It's just a walkthrough from St. Anthony's. It's somebody's personal, looks like video, some Russian that probably went on a pilgrimage there. Everything's in Russian, but gives you a little view of what it looks like. I mean, an absolute oasis in the desert. I mean, look how beautiful the monastery is. I'm going to click through here so you can see more of it. So I'm just giving you guys a little glimpse of St. Anthony's through this person's perspective, walking around the monastery. So kind of gives you guys a little visual taste of St. Anthony's. And if you've never been there, and actually I have yet to make it to St. Anthony's, that's another goal on the checklist, is to make it to St. Anthony's for a few days. So this next chapter is talking about Elder Ephraim being a spiritual builder and the importance of the monasteries he established here in the United States, including the monastery at the Theotokos, the Life-Giving Spring in Dunlap, California. Another sort of spiritual oasis in California that is due to the spiritual work of Elder Ephraim, and how he essentially revived monasticism in the United States. And so it reads, the power of monastic life, as Elder Ephraim taught, is rooted in a deep connection to the early desert fathers, such as St. Anthony of Egypt, who is often called the father of monasticism. St. Anthony left his home in the city and retreated to the desert, seeking solitude and communion with God. His life of asceticism, prayer, and spiritual warfare became a model for countless others who sought to live a life wholly devoted to Christ. And so Elder Ephraim often spoke of St. Anthony's example, seeing it as a guide for the revival of monasticism in America. And that's why it's called St. Anthony's Monastery. Just as St. Anthony had gone to the desert to find God, so too had Elder Ephraim come to the deserts of Arizona and the hills of California, believing that these places, far from the distractions of the city, could become new centers for spiritual renewal. And then the next one is the Native American journey to Orthodoxy, which is really cool. He describes the lives of various Native Americans who kind of found their identity and faith within the Orthodox Church. He talks about a handful of different people. First, he begins with the history, obviously with Alaska and the Aleut. But then he talks about stories of indigenous converts. So one was a man named Vladimir Nottoway, an Orthodox Christian in the spiritual leader of his Mohawk tribe, who had discovered a deep connection between his native traditions and the ancient faith of the Orthodox Church. It was a journey marked by mystery, revelation, and a quiet courage that defied centuries of oppression and misunderstanding. Vladimir's journey to Orthodox began in the twilight of his life, a journey that had taken him from the reservation of his youth deep into the heart of the ancient faith that touched his soul in ways that he had never imagined. He often spoke of his path to Orthodoxy as a secret path, a hidden trail that wound through the dense forest of his heritage and led him to the Orthodox Church. So talking a little bit about Vladimir, and then a handful of other people. Let's see. Rebecca Hernandez, embracing Orthodoxy as a Native American woman, connecting Native American traditions to the ancient faith, just as St. Herman did for those in Alaska. And then I'm going to read the last section of this chapter regarding Native Americans finding Orthodoxy. Today, Native American Orthodoxy is experiencing a quiet but steady revival. Communities like Orthodox Native America are dedicated to sharing the Orthodox faith with Native Americans, building bridges between cultures and fostering a deep understanding of the ancient church's teaching. This movement is not about replacing or erasing Native traditions, but about fulfilling them in light of Christ. As Vladimir Nottoway once observed, I see parallels between our traditions and the Orthodox tradition. This discovery fulfilled my Indian ethos and supplemented it. By embracing Orthodoxy, many Native Americans find a way to reconnect with their own heritage while deepening their relationship with God. They discover in the church a spiritual home where their unique cultural expressions are not only welcome but celebrated. They see in the lives of native saints such as Saint Yaakov, Saint Peter, Saint Olga, a continuity of faith and tradition that speaks of their deepest longings. The Native American journey to Orthodoxy is a testament to the universality of the gospel, to the truth that Christ came for all people in all times and all places. It is a reminder that the ancient faith of the Orthodox Church has the power to speak to every heart, to touch every soul, and to bring light into every corner of the earth. So this is why I was talking about the loss of identity and the sort of context, the religious context of America right now. Because this is true. Orthodoxy provides identity not just to disconnected European ancestry of white America. It certainly does that. It connects you back to Byzantium. It connects you back to the history of the saints, the history of the apostles and Christ. But it connects the Native Americans with St. Herman and their conversions to Orthodoxy. And the next chapter gets into African Americans and their entrance into the Orthodox Church, the African American experience. And this is John, the author of the book here, with Father Moses Berry. And so he's talking about how his own personal journey as an African American man into the Orthodox Church. And he says, finally, I found my spiritual home at Elevation of the Holy Cross, an Orthodox church in America, an OCA parish in Sacramento, where the services are conducted in English, and most of the parishioners and clergy are converts like myself. Here I found a community of seekers, people like me who had many different backgrounds drawn from ancient faith of the Orthodox Church. And then he talks about Father Raphael Morgan, the first African-American Orthodox priest in the United States. So Father Raphael Morgan, a man whose life journey carried him across oceans, continents, and faith. Born Robert Josias Morgan was in the vibrant landscapes of Chapelton, Clarendon Parish, Jamaica. Sometime between 1864 and 1871, his story began with loss. His father's death 6 months before his birth, raised in the Anglican tradition by his mother, Mary Ann Morgan. Young Robert exhibited an early thirst for knowledge and spiritual exploration. This longing propelled him to the distant shores of Cologne, Panama. Okay, so not first African-American. In 1907, the journey culminated in Constantinople, where he was baptized Raphael and ordained as the first African-American Orthodox Christian priest. His ordination, that's what I thought. His ordination by the Holy Synod marked a historic moment, one that carried both hope and weighty expectations, as he was sent back to America to establish the Orthodox faith among English speakers. In Philadelphia, St. Raphael founded the Orthodox Community of All Saints, a pioneering attempt to create a space where Orthodox doctrine could be taught in English. And then he gets into the life and witness of Father Moses Berry, who I'm going to play a video for you guys next. So there's a video right here talking about race and challenges with becoming Orthodox by Father Moses Berry. I thought it was it's an 8-minute video. I thought it was a good supplemental material here. Alexandria throws in a generous $50. Thank you so much, Alexandria. That's so nice of you. She said, thank you, DPH and John Hammond. Yeah, major thank you to our sponsor today, John Hammond, who's the author of the books that we're looking at. He's the director of the film, the documentary film we checked out earlier. She says, great stream. Go Doctor and Miss Harry. Well, thank you so much, Alexandria. I'm sure Jenny appreciates that. Thank you so much for the support. Really, really appreciate you and your friendship. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Siaba throws in too, says, love your solo stuff. Congrats on the PhD. Well, thank you so much, brother. Really appreciate that. And Mud, COTEL crew member for 24 months, says, this is late, but congratulations, doctor. Well, thank you so much, Mud. Really appreciate that. So thank you very, very much, Alexandria. That was very generous of you. Really appreciate that support. Let me check while we're taking a break here. Let me check the other. Lynn Benson throws in 5 over on Dono Chat. Says, congratulations, Dr. Harry. Thank you so much, Lynn. God bless you. I hope you're doing well. God bless you and the family. Thank you very much. Eno Continia throws in 5, says, I hope you come to the once-in-a-lifetime service at Fort Ross on October 4th and attend the conference October 3rd. We are celebrating 100 years of liturgy with 3 metropolitans. Oh, wow. Okay. I did not know that. I will write that down and keep that. So October 4th. 3rd through the 4th, Fort Ross. That would be really cool. That might be something I will take you up on. And Actinia, thank you so much for letting me know about that. That would be a lot of fun. And George sends in 5, says, I've been following you for a long time and appreciate your content. Congratulations on earning your PhD. Well, thank you so much, George. Really appreciate that. God bless you, brother. And in Actinia, thank you very much for letting me know about the service at Fort Ross. Over on Streamlabs, we have a generous $20 sent in by Pork Stuff. And Pork Stuff says, I'm late, but congratulations, Dr. DPH. Thank you so much, Pork Stuff. Really appreciate that. Love the name. Love the name. So thank you so much, Alexandria. Really appreciate that. Okay. So what I was going to show you guys, I'm going to read this quick little section on Father Moses Berry, and then we're going to get into this video. So in many ways, my own search, though John Hammond, my own search mirrors the transformative journey of Father Moses Berry, a man whose life is a testament to the unexpected turns that led to grace. Born Carl Berry in Ash Grove, Missouri, Father Moses did not grow up in an Orthodox family. His story begins in a small town steeped in the dark history of American slavery. Father Moses' ancestry includes Nathaniel Boone, the son of legendary American frontiersman Daniel Boone and Maria Boone, an enslaved woman. The Ozark Foothills African-American History Museum, which Father Moses founded in his hometown, houses faded portraits, artifacts, and heirlooms to tell the story of his ancestors' struggle for survival. Like me, Father Moses felt the pull of something more profound than the immediate surroundings offered. At the age of 15, he left Ashgrove, hitchhiked to California, chasing the promise of the flower power movement. In California, he lived in communes, learned to roll hashish, and played in a band called Honey Chili. However, in the life he sought in the countercultural scene led him to unexpected places, and after opening an underground coffee shop that doubled as a front for selling hashish and marijuana, he found himself in prison, in solitary confinement, praying desperately for a second chance. Father Moses' prayers were answered. After his release, his journey took him to New York City, where he became a teacher in Harlem and met his wife, a liberal Jewish woman. They were searching together, just as I was when I first walked into the Orthodox Church, unsure of what I would find, but open to the possibilities. They were invited to a small Orthodox chapel in Richmond, Virginia, where Moses was captivated by the beauty of the liturgy, the poetry of the prayers, and the reverence of the worship. He described it as a moment of deep recognition, a realization that he had found a spiritual home. And so now I want to let Father Moses speak in his own words a little bit about himself and the challenges of race and for African Americans finding orthodoxy. So John highlights, Father Turbo Qualls, Father Samuel Davis. So Father Samuel Davis, I've seen him on X. Obviously, I'm good friends with Father Turbo Qualls, an amazing man. So he highlights them as another voice of African Americans who are Orthodox, all three of which are priests. And then he connects the African American saints, Saint Moses the Black, and others. He finishes on touching on that and connecting all that. So I'm going to play Father Moses Berry here, and let's check out this video.
I think that the Spirit of the Lord is being poured out upon the people of this earth right now, and calling all sorts of people to the Orthodox Church. And a number of those people are African American people. And those people who are African American people have a particular challenge when they come to the Orthodox Church. And that challenge is not to be a Christian, an Orthodox Christian, but the challenge is to not call upon the blessings of their ancestors who were able to tolerate people's behavior, even in the midst of mistreatment. In order for us to, as Christians, to be blessed in the kingdom of heaven, we must be able to endure, not unconsciously, but consciously endure people saying all manner of evil against us if it stalls. And, that's a big challenge. It's a big challenge for Orthodox people, or for African American Orthodox people particularly, because there were so many people who don't look like them. They don't look like them. That's, I always said, many years ago when I first came into an Orthodox church in Richmond, Virginia, and I saw the icons of St. Moses and St. Cyprian of Carthage, who were like me. Their skin was like mine, and their hair was like mine, and they were like me. And I started to relate to them as being, like me. And there was a great consolation, because in order for a person to know that about deification, they have to know that deification is possible in their flesh. And never discount the unconscious acceptance of things through images. And I think that people should, people have struggles coming in the church and saying, where are the Orthodox, where are the Black icons? And where there's nothing that fits for some people. They don't go to the depths of it and say, my goodness, these are otherworldly images. They don't go to the depths that St. John Maximovich went to when they were buying New Divievo as a seminary, but they bought it from a Roman Catholic church, and they had a big statue out front of Jesus, the Sacred Heart of Jesus. And he liked the monastery. It was pretty nice. He just decided that he would consider the matter, because he was in charge of those kind of things there. He would, consider the matter. And so he said, I'll come back in such and such time and talk to you about whether or not, and announce you as to what we will do. So he came back there, and the Sacred Heart of Jesus statue was gone. And he asked the brothers, what happened to the statue? And he goes, well, I know that we Orthodox do not, count that as proper. We consider that to be segmenting the body of Christ. So we moved it back to yonder place. And he said, oh my goodness, don't you know how many people have cried and sweat and bled tears for their relatives in front of that icon, that statue rather? And for you to remove it, oh my goodness, it was a holy object. So when we see those icons that don't look like us, we have to look beyond it, or else we'll miss something. And matter of fact, we'll be steered, if we're not careful, away from the otherworldly meaning of icons. Because we'll be concentrating on the wrong thing. We'll be concentrating on what this image looks like.
So for those of you, what he's talking about is African Americans coming into Orthodoxy. One of the struggles that he sees as a priest is that they look at the icons and they don't see a bunch of black saints, and that off-puts them because they don't see themselves in the holy figures of the church. And he mentioned how even he himself, when he saw Saint Cyprian of Carthage and Saint Moses the Black, that was inspiring to Father Moses Berry because he could see himself in them. However, his point now is that we need to get beyond that, because to look at icons based on the ethnic or racial phenotype of various saints misses the entire point of Orthodoxy. That's what he's getting ready to explain here.
Rather than what this image can have me look into heaven. So that's a challenge, man, that we have. And the challenge is this. The challenge is that we become so caught up in the things of this world, and I even include holy images in that. We're so caught up in the things of this world that we will miss our blessing. We'll just miss it. Now, I wonder what would have happened to me if I hadn't seen those icons of Saint Cyprian and Saint Moses. Would I have been so shallow that I would have missed this great thing? Would I have not dug up the whole field with a pearl of great price? Would I have not swept the room clean if it wasn't there on the table? I think that's not past me to do it. Because anything anybody can do, I already know I can do a lot of this stuff. Have done. And if we concentrate too much on what we consider the problem, we will move ourselves away from the otherworldly blessing that Christ has for us. It's all the devil's work. It's the devil's work that makes us look at an icon and say, that's too European for me. That's the devil. We can look at that icon and say, I would like to paint one or have one made that looks more African looking. But to critique the icon as if it were the wrong color, then we've missed out on a tremendous amount. Good, because that's the deal, man. You miss the thing. People come out with the icon of the Mother of God, and the icon is weeping, and they're going, just European. Oh my God! So you miss this whole wonderful thing, because it didn't fit your concept. And the other guy comes in and sees, I have an icon of Saint Spiridon in our church, and he's black. And people's oftentimes it's in the altar, and it's big, and it's maybe 3 foot. It's just like 3 foot by 2.5 foot big tall. And people will come back there and preach and go, Saint Spiridon is not black. That's from 1600s. It's a print. Bishop Thomas from the Antiochian Church gave it to me. It's a print from 1600s. It's not Afrocentric. So, my goodness, we miss this thing. Instead of getting a blessing from that old icon, people going, that doesn't look like the Spiridon I know. Now, if you paint John Maximovic black, you're in trouble. you really got a problem. You paint St. Moses white, you got some problems.
So I thought that was a really insightful little video, and it hits at what John's trying to highlight in his chapter regarding the bridge of Orthodoxy in America concerning the African American community, and how even again for them it provides them a historical identity. I mean, but if an African American becomes Orthodox, it connects them back to the history of Africa, the history of Christianity, the spread of Christianity, and connects them with all these wonderful saints. So I thought this video of you know, and blessed memory eternal to Father Moses Berry, you know, he's now reposed. I thought it was very insightful little clip on race and challenges in becoming Orthodox. So the last one I have, or he has a really good chapter here on, let me close this, on the art and architecture of Orthodox America, and talking about the synthesis of tradition and modernity. The architecture of Orthodox churches in America is a blend of traditional Eastern Christian forms and modern innovations, with each structure embodying the theological roots of the Orthodox faith. One of the most remarkable examples of this synthesis is Holy Trinity Russian Orthodox Cathedral in Chicago, designed by Louis Sullivan, a pioneering figure in American architecture. Built in the Ukrainian village, this cathedral appears as though it has been transported from a small village in southern Russia. Its modest yet intricate design reflects the simplicity and intimacy of the rural churches that inspired it, while its ornate interior, filled with incense and icons, creates a space that invites contemplation and prayer. And so he talks a little about iconographers and various projects, talks about Andrew Gould's, whose work is dedicated to reviving, advancing traditional Orthodox architectural styles in North America. Gould, an architect, liturgical designer, and founder of New World Byzantine Studios, has been at the forefront of this movement, emphasizing the importance of creating spaces that serve as true icons of the heavenly reality. His designs incorporate elements of classical Byzantine architecture, such as domes, arches, and icon screens, while also responding to the local environment and cultural context. And so it talks about, I think Paggio did some stuff with Andrew Gould, and it talks about the evident design of the St. John the Baptist Orthodox Church in Charleston, South Carolina. And I remember watching a video where Paggio interviewed him and talked about architecture and stuff like that. He says, talks about the role of iconography, theology, and color. Orthodox churches through the eyes of Western artists is another section. And then he gets into the symbolic world and references Jonathan Paggio. And then he has a section on holy places and pilgrimage in America. And he highlights monasteries, cathedrals, churches, centers of spiritual renewal, a day of pilgrimage and reflection, giving a life-giving spring monastery, the hidden gem in the Sierra Nevadas, Holy Assumption Monastery, the Vineyard of Faith in Napa Valley, the pilgrimage of 2024, a journey through Orthodox Los Angeles, St. Andrew Orthodox Church meeting Father Josiah Trenum, Holy Transfiguration Cathedral and Holy Virgin Mary Cathedral, sacred spaces in Los Angeles, St. Sophia, the Greek Orthodox Cathedral, a jewel in Los Angeles. All these places he's talking about pilgrimage, the importance, the beauty, the experience that people can have. St. Nectario's Shrine, a place of miracles, Flames of Uncertainty, Los Angeles fires in January 2025, and the resilience of faith. And you know, the fires in Los Angeles are affecting our Orthodox brothers and sisters. I have a friend who belongs to a mission parish or a small parish there in LA. And, you know, many parishioners lost their whole homes. You know, they lost everything. So he ends by talking about the potential spiritual framework to look at the toll that the fires in Los Angeles caused. And then it ends with the future of Orthodoxy is the last chapter. And he talks about a new dawn in the church, which again, we're seeing unprecedented growth. So many Western people, and this isn't unique to America. And obviously this conversation for the stream in this book is unique to America. But as I've showed before, England and Germany in particular are seeing massive increases in converts to Orthodoxy. and from a friend that I spoke to, they're also seeing this in Spain, although not as much. I mean, Spain still holds on to much of its Catholic heritage. I'm not sure about Orthodoxy in France. I'm really not aware like what's going on there. I do know I've talked with a person in Finland. They said they were a convert to Orthodoxy. They said that their parish was growing. I spoke with obviously people in anywhere in the UK. So Ireland, for example, in Ireland, Orthodoxy is like the fastest growing religion outside of all the Muslim immigrants they're bringing in. If you exclude all the Muslim immigrants and you just look at the Irish people, many of them are converting to Orthodoxy due to what's happening on with the Catholic Church, a reevaluation. And we did a whole stream talking about the British Isles saints, in the Orthodox heritage of, I guess we could say, the Celts and the Britons throughout what we would now call the UK. So Sneck knows about Orthodox. Have you heard? Is Orthodoxy growing in France like it is in England and Germany? So shout out to FDA's in the chat. I know for a fact in Germany, they're witnessing, it's not at the same rate as America, but for Germany, it's a significant increase in young people's interest in Orthodoxy. And I definitely know, I definitely know in England and Ireland that there is massive growth. Not sure. I've never heard anybody in Scotland talk about Orthodoxy. So I'm not sure, but I know those places are. So anyways, this last chapter is talking about the future of Orthodoxy in America and the role of saints, miracles, and faith, looking ahead, hopes and challenges. And I wanted to conclude our stream by listening to Father Peter Heers kind of talk about a reflection on the future of Orthodoxy in America. And that was going to kind of conclude our stream. And Brody Alexander sent in $3.33, says memory eternal to Father Moses Berry. Absolutely. And Blue Skittle throws in $10. Thank you so much, Blue Skittle. Really appreciate that. And let's get into this final video. So essentially, guys, this concludes my overview of this book. This is, again, a great, approachable, easy read. You can knock this out in a whole day pretty easily. Well, if you're a reader, that is. I don't know how other people read, but a great little overview talking about pilgrimage and the experience of Orthodoxy in America. I would say this was a little bit more about the history and connecting the contemporary period with the founding of Orthodoxy in America, specifically like St. Herman and St. Peter the Aleut and all that different stuff. And in this other book, the Light Journey, is a little bit of a different flavor in the sense it's more encompassing, it's more general, and it's more about how we as an American can experience the living faith of Orthodoxy right here, right now. So let's check this video out, and I will, let me see where, okay, there it is.
America, what are some of the obstacles and how much is it increasing? Thank you, Father. That's I'm not a prophet. So, I mean, you're asking me to be kind of like, I don't know. What are these people who foretell the future of the economic situation? What they expect to see coming in the next year or something. I would say if Orthodox Christians, all of us tonight, all the people around the world, if we truly are about the work of repentance in our life, going deeper, the prayer, all the things that make up true spiritual life and disciples of Christ in earnest, then there's a great future for Orthodoxy in America. If we're all repenting and we're going deeper, there's a danger, though. It's a huge danger for Orthodoxy in America, and I'm very concerned that there's not deep and extensive catechism going on for all these new converts. They're not being properly received by baptism. They're not being properly catechized. And therefore, the foundation that's being laid for them spiritually is weak, and it will crumble under the weight of persecution and difficult days, if not even sooner. And so if there's not a serious doubling down on the part of the clergy to thoroughly catechize and prepare people for the mysteries, then I think there is a great danger for secularization, further secularization, but also a distortion of orthodoxy. There'll be a rise and a temporary, or maybe more, rule of a cacodoxy among Orthodox in America. And I don't think the general trend of these folks online who are so invested in debates and analysis and apologetics is necessarily any kind of fix or bright light. And I'll tell you why. Because that's not how the church. If you look at the lives of the saints, look at the lives of the missionaries, look at the lives of St. Herman of Alaska, or St. Stephen of Perm, or St. Innocent of Alaska, or Father Cosmas of Gregorio, and just to take a couple of people in the last 200 years, they didn't sit around and debate ad nauseum. And they didn't rely on their rational intellects to figure it all out. They didn't call people out left and right for heresy, for things that the church has either not spoken on, or there's some gray area or debate. I mean, there's a tendency here among some of the zealous converts to become authorities overnight about Orthodox theology. I think it's a big trap. Go spend time with monastics. Go spend time on Mount Athos. Go spend time in monasteries. Go spend time with people who are living deeply the spiritual life. Go deeply in a relationship with a spiritual father. Make progress in fasting. Make progress in prayer. Make progress in these things, and then take up in earnest whatever you might take up in terms of apologetics or catechism, or whatever you think that you're called to. Because if you just rely on your rational intellect and you don't have an experience which then gives you discernment, you will fall away. You will make a mess of it. You will end up just creating a lot of contention and confusion, if not worse. So I think there are a lot of pitfalls for the Orthodox in America ahead. And I think we've got to double down on serious, deep, patient catechism, which means purification. This means a change of way of life and an ascetic life. And
that's going to conclude the video for Father Peter. The reason I played that is because it gets back to the central point of John Hammond's book, which is about the experience of Orthodoxy in America. That the monastics, the monasteries, the churches, the clergy, the available resources, all of this is at our disposal here in America. And so we can't let Orthodoxy become an ideology, something that we just intellectually profess. It has to be something that is experiential, something that is personal, subjective, and validates all the rationality that we present. So anyways, that's going to conclude much of today's stream. Again, if you want to get John's book, here it is right here, Light Journey. I'm going to share that link with you. And then do follow. Remember, go to John's website, AmericanOrthodoxFilm.com. That documentary is coming out very, very soon. So if you would like to be one of the first to know about the publishing of the new documentary, follow his website, and you'll be informed about all that. I think they probably have an email list. I'm not sure. But anyways, that's going to do it for me, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed the stream. What did you guys think? I know it was a bit of a winding road between history and contemporary theology, contemporary culture, the American landscape. So I hope it was rewarding. A major thank you to John again for sponsoring the channel, sponsoring this stream, and supporting my work. I really appreciate that, brother. God bless you. Let me just check real quick to see if anybody sent any more super chats. Anonymous sends in 5 over on Dono Chat. Says DPH, the Hawaiian Iveron icon will be at St. George ROC in Loveland, Ohio, Friday, May 30th. Oh, wow. Well, May 30th, unfortunately, I will be in Milwaukee going to Chase's wedding. But I have not yet to venerate the Iveron icon. So that is something that is another thing that is on my Orthodox bucket list. So hopefully I can do that relatively soon. But Anonymous, thank you for letting me know. And if anybody's in the area, so I'll just make that announcement for everybody. If you're in Ohio, the Iveron icon that we discussed today, the Miracle MER streaming icon, will be at St. George ROC in Loveland, Ohio, Friday, May 30th, if you guys are interested. So anyways, guys, that is going to do it for me. Smash that like. Thank you all for the support. A major thank you to Haulin' the Good for such a generous super chat. Thank you to Alexandria. And then Alan Sacramentoski. Thank you guys very much for the generous support today, and everybody who supported, everybody who's super chat, and everybody who's here and liked the stream, and hopefully you got something beneficial from it. I'm going to be back tomorrow. I'm going to be doing another stream, potentially either an open panel, or there's two things that I've been wanting to dive into. I was wanting to do a debunking stream on the cosmic Christ consciousness type stuff. And I want to do a deep dive into the history of Christian Zionism and dispensational theology. So I may do the cosmic Christ, or may just do an open panel tomorrow and save the cosmic Christ one for Thursday. So I'll be streaming obviously today, tomorrow, and then Thursday. Wednesday night, we have a members meeting, the think tank. So if you want to join our private think tank meeting where we discuss everything that's going on in the world, that will be Wednesday at 7:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You sign up with the website, you'll get the Zoom link. So thank you, everybody. I will see you all tomorrow. And as always, until next time, God bless.